Prophet ﷺ advise? How did he deal with this situation? First of all, he recognized that the people that he sent them to, he said, this is a Christian king. His name was Nagoshi, the king of Ethiopia. And he's a man of justice. So people left oppression, believing in Islam, to seek refuge with a good Christian king. And he was chosen as being the person who would then allow Islam to nurture in an honest and sincere... So this relationship is really very important. Now, the way that the people related in Ethiopia is very important. And that's perhaps another story which we could go into at a later date. But that concept is very important. So he sent his nephew, to lead the group. So Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, his cousin, was the leader of this group of people. And he gave him the instruction to go and relate to the welcoming host who welcomed these refugees. So he said, but how should we deal with it on a theological level? Because they're Christian. He's a Christian, devout Christian leader, running his country with his group of ministers who were following Christianity. He says, how are we going to deal with that? He says, if you ever have a difficulty, read Surat Maryam. So therefore, if you want to know what to talk about today, I could just say, read Surat Maryam, bye, I'm off now. Because that's really what it's all about. But I suppose that's not really what you came for, was it? So you want me to read it for you? Alhamdulillah, I can do that if you wish, because Amir has organised it so that it's up there. So let me just read a little bit of that, and then perhaps we'll go back to some of those questions later on, and I'll open the floor for a wider discussion. Right, it begins. So let's continue that story. So they head for Ethiopia, they get there, it's a tremendous adventure to get there, and when they get there, some of those leaders of Quraysh who had been oppressing them decide that they're going to go to the Negus to get these refugees sent back to Syria. Oops, did I say that? To get them sent back to their homeland, Makkah. So they get there, and what do? They know that the Negus likes leather. So what do? They get the best possible leather gifts, and they present these to the king, to the Negus, and they say, we believe you have terrorists from our country who have introduced a false religion and are causing strife and discomfort and difficulties for our people. Please give them back to us, and here's some gifts for you. And of course, he's a good, honest Christian leader. And he's not just going to turn over the refugees. So he calls Ja'far, and he says, he realizes that this doesn't make sense. They're saying all these bad things, and our people know that Ja'far and his people are really good. So then they go away, and the problems. So then the polytheists, the people of Quraysh, think, I know what we'll do. We'll start spreading some fake news. We'll spread a bit of fake news. You know? What we'll do is we'll say, this is what they say. So they spread some fake news, and it gets to the Negus that Ja'far and his people have said all these bad things about Jesus. Now obviously, he loves Jesus, he's a Christian. And now at this point, they come along and say, now hand over the terrorist. You've heard the news, but fortunately, as I was saying, I won't refer to Donald Trump again, but Negus was not like that. The Negus decided, I don't believe in fake news. I'll call him up myself and ask him straight. So he says, tell me what you say about Jesus. So Ja'far walks in. Now there's something you need to know about Ja'far. Ja'far was very, very handsome. He was the person that was the closest in appearance to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in terms of his physical features. So he appeared, and when the others, whoa! It's like the man himself has come. So Ja'far came in, and his simple appearance struck everybody. That was the first thing that happened. Then he walked in, and the Negus greeted him, and he says, so tell me what you say of Jesus. And then he goes and he recites these 24 verses. And that's why these 24 verses are quite important. So I'm not going to go in detail to them, but I think it's worth just reading them for the blessing of the story, so to speak. And maybe just reflecting on a couple of the verses as we read. So he says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Kaf, ya, kaf, ha, ya, ayn, sad. These are just 5 letters. Kaf, ha, ya, ayn, sad. They don't actually mean anything. They don't actually mean anything. There are no words. So he starts off with these 5 letters. Why? What's the significance of that? One of them is to show that actually there's something in this story about Jesus which is beyond the words. There's something mystical about this story. There's something beyond the physical. When we're talking about Jesus, the story of Jesus is something which is beyond comprehension in the simple terms of language. That's how it starts. Kaf, ha, ya, ayn, sad. And then, what did I say the surah was called, the chapter was called? Sorry? Maryam. The story, the chapter is called Mary. There's a chapter in the Quran dedicated to the mother of Jesus. A whole chapter. There's not many chapters dedicated to individuals. But Maryam has this special status. And it begins with this massive verse which shows that this story is not simply a story of a baby. Something great beyond what you know, the elves have got nothing to do with it. It's got no space there. Because if you really understood how important that baby was, you'd get rid of all the junk and you'd focus on the baby. Because this is important. But how does it start? ذِكْرُ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّكَ عَبْدَهُ زَكَرِيَّا. Mention the mercy of your Lord towards his slave, Zachariah. What did we say the story was about? Mary. So why does it start talking about Zachariah? Well, you're getting happy with this one. Or anybody. Sorry? A father. Uncle. Right, Zechariah, according to Islamic belief, is a prophet. And later in this story, as we go along, we'll see that Maryam teaches Zechariah some elements of spirituality. We'll see that coming. What is the status of a woman who can teach a prophet? So it starts off by mentioning Zechariah and how important the mercy that was given to him. What's this mercy? Now here, what it's talking about, something which is important to us, it teaches us through the story of Zechariah how to get something which is inconceivable in the mind. It starts off, the verse starts off with taking your mind beyond the physical and recognizing actually there's another dimension to this world. And that dimension is limitless. Just to teach you that actually God is even more limitless than that. And if you want something, if you're an old man like Zachariah was, to make a prayer, give me a baby, is not ridiculous when you go into the realm of who God is. When you talk about the physical, it seems inconceivable. But when you talk about the power of God, nothing is inconceivable because he's beyond that. So that's what it starts with this. إِذْ نَادَى رَبُّهُ نِدَاءً خَفِيًّا. What's this call that he makes? He's calling, he wants a son. But it teaches us the relationship that he had with his Lord, which was that he made this call, khafiyyan, silently, privately, intensely between him and his Lord. It teaches you that if you want something great, how you should ask for it. إذ نادى رب نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل رأس شيء ولم أكن بدعائك ربي الشقيا. He says, oh my Lord, my bones are weak and my hair is grey and you've never let me down before. Can you see the style that he's using? There's lots to learn from how to speak to your Lord. First thing is to recognize your own weakness. I've got grey hair, I've got weak bones. And then to recognize your Lord, but you've never let me down before. إِنِّي خِفْتَ الْمَوَالِيَ مِنْ وَرَائِي وَكَانَتْ امْرَأَتِي عَاقِرًا. I'm scared that I'm not going to have any children. But he doesn't say I want kids. He doesn't say that. He says, I fear that there won't be any lineage. There's a different story here. وَكَانَتْ امْرَأَتِي عَاقِرًا. My wife is barren. فَهَبْ لِي مِنْ لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. So give me from your mercy an inheritor. So now in effect what he's doing, he's making a prayer of which will be beneficial to others. يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. Why is that important? He recognizes Ya'qub. Now what's Ya'qub's other name?
Another name?
Yeah.
Israel.
Israel. يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. He's making a dua for the tribes of Israel. And that's really important, because what you're doing in your prayer, what you're doing in who you are, relates to your forefathers, both physical and spiritual. And he recognizes that in his prayer. And that's why the statements that I was making at the beginning about those important big questions are important. Ya Zakaria, so Allah sends the angel Gabriel, Ya Zakaria, inna nubashiruka bi ghulamin ismuhu Yahya. Oh Zachariah, the angel tells him, I'm going to give you the name, I'll give you news of a son. His name is John, Yahya. وَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ السَّمِيرِ. Something which is unique. So far Jesus isn't even mentioned. You see, we're halfway through this story, and Jesus is not. The build-up to who Jesus is vital. قَالْ رَبِّي أَنَّ يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ وَكَانَتْ امْرَأَتِي عَاقِرًا وَقَدْ بَلَغَتْ مِنَ الْكِبْرِ عِتِيًّا. And then he explains, well, that's really strange. How could this happen? Then the angel says to him, قَالَ كَذَلِكَ. That's how it is. كَذَلِكَ. There's something really important in that. Because once you recognize who God is, sometimes when you're asked, or you ask yourself, why? How? Why? Why? Sometimes the answer is, كَذَلِكَ. That's how it is. And once you can accept that's how it is, you can actually deal with so much. Alhamdulillah, the last time I was here, I was sitting here with my wee lad, if anybody can remember, and the reason why was because my wife is, as some know, very sick. Alhamdulillah, she's stable, and the wee lad is now a bit bigger and he's playing. So I don't have him on my lap. But one of the things that has made a big difference to Sarah, my wife, dealing with what happened to her, was actually understanding that word. قَالَ كَذَلِكَ. That's how it is. She didn't ask, why me? Why have my lungs stopped working? Why was I on those machines for such a long time? Why can't I breathe without machines or without help? She stopped asking those questions. And as soon as she stopped asking those questions, she actually said to me sometime after, because you can imagine this is a big struggle for all of us. And one of the things I struggled the most with was, I'd write a diary and I'd say, I am content with the decree of God. Very technical. I am content with the decree. And it was true. I'm okay about it. I never wrote I'm happy. I never honestly wrote I was happy. All the time that she was sick, I never said I was happy. I said I was content. Then one day she turned around to me, she says, you know, Abdul Azeez, I've never been happier in my life. And for a few days I really struggled with that. How could she say she's happy? And it's because of that phrase. She accepted that كذلك, Allah plans things. And there's a bigger picture to this. And once you can accept that, you can actually deal with whatever's going on in your life. And she truly was happier. And she is, when people talk about her past life, they say they've never seen her so happy as she is now. Why? Because of this. قال كذلك قال هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل لم تك شيئا. That's how it is. قال رب اجعل لي آية. He says, give me a sign. قال آيتك أن لا تكلم الناس ثلاث ليال سويا. Right. So now we're moving into who Maryam is. Now, I think I need to give some background to the story. We said Zechariah was the uncle. What kind of, how's he related then? Maternal uncle, paternal uncle?
Elizabeth was the sister of the mother of Miriam.
So maternal.
Maternal.
I like this. What's your name? My friend. I'll just call you my friend.
Okay.
I like this. That's exactly right. That's what it was. Now again, Hannah in the Arabic, or Elizabeth is the biblical narration, and the Arabs say Hannah. So Hannah, when she was also quite old, and she wanted a son who would serve God, or Elizabeth wanted a son who would serve God. So she made a prayer that she would have a son. And this story appears in Ali Imran for those who want to follow it in another chapter. And she has this child, and it's not a boy. It's Maryam. And Maryam, she's surprised, but she'd made this promise to God